When I started work as a beekeeper helper back in 2012, the first thing I was asked to do was scrape old beehive boxes and sort through the frames of comb to get the hives ready to be used again soon. I was to check the outside of each box for rot and to throw away each frame that had lots of unwanted comb or comb damage on it. I didn't think much about it the first couple days or so of cleaning those things. I didn't even know what colony collapse disorder was until I finally asked my boss where all these hive boxes came from, as I saw piles of dead bees and quite a few of them. He told me that his bees had a hard time during the winter, and that quite a few of the boxes that I had already cleaned and sorted were winter die-offs. He said all his bees were now in the almond orchards in California, and that the majority of the boxes that I had yet to clean and sort through, he had just picked up from his last visit down there a few days ago. Each box was a fully functional hive the first few weeks they were in California, but then died for whatever reason. I looked at all the boxes in shock. I had sorted through I don't know how many dozens and dozens of boxes, and there looked to be 100 or so more to go through. That's a lot of dead bees, I thought to myself. 7 years later, after working with him, my boss at Mountain Meadow Honey eventually retired, and I moved on to pursue a career in warehouse work, but not before I bought a few hives from him and continued the beekeeping practices that he had taught me. I continued to look into the reports of CCD, or colony collapse disorder, and did my own research in the matter. Here is what we all know. Honeybee colonies were lost at alarming rates from 2006 to 2015, and the frustration was not being able to pinpoint the exact cause of CCD. What some of us didn't know was that during that time, honeybees were not the only useful insects affected. Scientists had found that native bees and butterfly species are disappearing too. There are over 4,000 species of native bees, most of which are more efficient pollinators than honeybees, and 725 species of butterfly in North America, and the populations within these species have been declining together with honeybees. The number one concern people have on this subject is what we will be able to put on the table if bees totally disappear. That question comes from the fact the United States alone produces around 28 million tons of fruits and nuts from more than 4.8 million acres of farmland, according to the Fruit Industry Statistics and according to the Virginia Farm Bureau. Honeybees are responsible for the success of 80% of that yield. So if bees disappear, how is that going to affect the grocery market? I've looked very deeply into this matter and found there are 4 categories of fruits and vegetables, 2 of which require insect pollination. We will look into the insect ones first. The first category I gave the name pollinator critical. These are plants that strictly require the assistance of insect pollinators to produce fruit. If they do not get any insect pollination, regardless if it is from bees, flies, butterflies, or moths, there will be no harvest at all. I'm only going to name the familiar fruits and vegetables for the sake of time, but I have the full list in my blog, which I have the link to in the description below. They include tree nuts. Ha ha ha. Yes, I know, that's not a fruit nor is it a vegetable, but tree nuts are pollinator critical. The fruits and vegetables include apples, apricot, cherries, eggplant, figs, kale, mangoes, nectarines, peaches, all kinds of berries, domestic and wild, all kinds of berries, all kinds of pears, pineapple, all kinds of plums including prunes, pomegranates, pumpkins, radishes, all kinds of squash including zucchinis, and all kinds of melons, including watermelon. Those are the foods that strictly require insect pollination. But there are some other fruits and vegetables that don't need insects quite as much. That leads us to the second category that I named pollinator boosted. It is a list of foods that are typically self-pollinating or wind-pollinated, but produce more fruit and seed if insect or hand pollination takes place. Some of these can even be pollinated from bats. They include artichokes, asparagus, all kinds of beans, beets, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, carrots, celery, grapefruit, leeks, lemons and limes, all kinds of onions, oranges, papayas, all kinds of peas, all kinds of peppers, all kinds of potatoes, romaine lettuce, and turnips. If insects totally disappear, we will still be able to grow the above food, but not as well. Insects are needed for a boost in seed and fruit harvest in their crops. Also, the fruit does not grow as big if they are just pollinated by hand. So store prices for this produce will rise as the harvest will be in fewer quantities. The third category I labeled as hand-worked, as these fruits and vegetables were designed from the beginning to be pollinated by hand and do not require insects at all. Below is a list of foods that require clippings and hand pollination to produce. Except for cucumbers and tomatoes, which are part of the list, but bees do pollinate them, like bumblebees. These include bell peppers, dates, and kiwi fruit. The final category is nectar stations. Certain fruits and vegetables produce a good source of nectar for bees and other nectar-loving insects, but are strictly self-pollinating or wind-pollinated, and don't require insect pollination for food growth at all. These include bananas, corn, garlic, grapes, iceberg lettuce, mulberries, mushrooms, okra, spinach, and yams. Again, that isn't all of them, so the full listings of these 4 categories of food are in my blog. So what will there be to eat? Well, according to what is listed in the said categories, there will still be different fruits and vegetables for us to choose from following the bees' disappearance. Since corn and grain and grass are all wind-pollinated, we will still be able to raise our usual farm animals for meat, eggs, and milk. The only bad news for that is that vegans will have to learn to eat fish, or white meat at least, as most, if not all of their usual plant-grown food for protein and other nutrients will either be no more or way too expensive to buy. There is good news, however. The good news is that beekeepers have been working feverishly to rebuild their honeybee losses every year. And as a result, despite the concerns media have on this topic, honeybees will not completely disappear anytime soon. This is mostly due to the growing interest in backyard beekeeping and certain causes raised by people nationwide which spread awareness of how vital organic gardening and bees are to us and what can be done to help give pollinating insects another chance. However, the decline of our native bee species is not reversible on our part, as they are wild and cannot be humanly managed like honeybees can, which are domesticated insects. But what can be done to help the future of all pollinating insects is if more research is done on the effects insecticide and Roundup have on beneficial insects once they are sprayed or ingested with these chemicals. Thanks for watching.